When am I going to need to cook tiramisu? Am I going to be a chef? No.
I need to know how to cook tiramisu because it's my favourite dessert. So I strongly disagree with Jonah Hill there in Superbad. He would have had a bit of a surprise if he tried home economics for the Leaving Cert. You have to know about biology, nutrition, sociology, textiles, composition of food, home management and consumer technology, plus a lot more. So it's a broad subject, but here to take us through it is Sandra Cleary from Grinds 360. Home economics and scientific and social, to give it its full title. Tell me about the format of the paper, Sandra.
There are 3 sections to the paper. The first section is section A. We have 14 short questions and we have to answer 10. What a lot of students mightn't know is that the first 9 are guaranteed to be on the food studies syllabus, and the remaining 5 come from the what we call the home management section. Things like finance, household technology, consumer studies, those areas, textiles. And you should always play to your strengths. So some students, in fact the majority of students, prefer the food studies, so you might answer 9 from there and maybe 1 from the home management, or you can answer 5 home management and 5 from food studies. But it's a part of the paper that is very poorly answered. Very poorly answered, and it's worth 15% of your overall grade. A lot of students compare short questions with home economics to those of, say, a biology paper or a business paper, and they're completely different. Because normally when you see short questions, you think short answers. And where students would put something down, it would be correct, but it wouldn't be enough. So students should realise that every short question is worth 6 marks, which is 1.5% of your home economics grade, which is a lot. And they're worth 6 marks each. But what I even find as a teacher very off-putting, since the papers have started to be corrected or online, they no longer put number 6 beside the question. So I'm always there saying to them, bring in your pencil and break up the question. And generally they are like 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. You know, that's repeated. And you might get one question where it's a general statement worth 6, break that into 3 parts. But the general rule to get full marks, 2 marks, 2 sub-points, 3 marks, 3 sub-points. So just say you're asked what is an essential amino acid. You write down an amino acid that the body cannot make, and you get 1. It's correct, but you have to give an example.
Okay.
Then we move on, and I would spend 2 minutes each on these, and I would answer them last, not first. A lot of students might decide to answer them first. Some would say, oh, my teacher said it will get me in the mood. Anyone out there who has studied home economics for the last 2 years, there is nothing on this planet that will actually get you in the mood for that exam. What I would say is I would answer them last, because you don't have to worry about structure, you don't have to worry about layout. It's right like a maniac, literally. And if your timing hasn't gone exactly to plan, you know, it's easier fill in the gaps, shall we say, rather than trying to worry about a structure.
Okay, so are you suggesting then students start at section B or section C? Or?
Section B. We have a compulsory section B, then the second part of the paper. We have 1 compulsory question, so every student has to answer it. It's worth 80 marks, 20% of your overall grade. Now, what a lot of people forget about is virtually half of those 80 marks is unseen material. So the first part of question 1 and section B, the compulsory question, you have to analyse a table, a chart, a histogram. It's usually from a food survey. It could be from Board BIA, it could be from the FSAI, the National Teen Survey. And they give you information, and they're not in any textbooks. So you must remember that when you see that table, chart, whatever it happens to be, every other students sitting down, this is their first time seeing that as well. And there's a specific way of going about that, and that is you read the table, the histogram, you must understand what it's about, because there's a tendency, remember it's day 1 of the exam, students are very stressed and they think they should be writing straight away. So you have to take a breath, read it, Some students might get it in a minute, others might take 2 or 3 minutes, but do not write anything down until you understand that table. When you read the question, there's usually 2 key terms like comment, elaborate, comment, suggest reasons. And I would always say to students, answer in a table format, approximately a page and a half, but certainly no more than 2 pages. Do a rough work page. The 2 keywords that you highlight, comment and elaborate, they should be your vertical columns. And then the columns going across, they'll either specify 4 or 5, or you look at how many bars in the histogram, and you have, if there's 4 bars, 4 across. And it's 2 things would be, you have to give the information on the table, you must refer to it in your answer. You will lose marks. So if it's percentages, you must refer to those in your answer. If it's numbers, you must refer to them in your answer. And something that a lot of students don't know either is you have to refer to ranking. So just say hypothetically, I got a pie chart stating from Board BS stating all of the exports, very topical at the moment, with tariffs and whatever else. But anyway, well, just say it's looking good at the moment, our exports, and say, I don't know, dairy is the big one, and then you have meat, etc. You're meant to say dairy is the most popular export, and then you give the percentage. Meat is the second most important export, and you give the percentage. And that could get you 8 out of 10, or 8 out of 20 even, 10 out of 20, just by stating those facts.
Yeah, it seems like nearly too easy. It's like they can't be looking for that.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
It is that easy, but because it's not designated in textbooks, students are afraid of it. And for many students, the first time they saw those tables was actually at their mock paper. So I would say, don't go back 10 years, go back maybe the last 5 because you want to keep it topical, and just take out your marker, look at the table. Do I understand it? Find the 2 keywords, get a piece of rough work paper and do out the table. But you do need to have practice. Now there's a nutrient. The whole world and his mother is obsessed with what nutrient is coming up. And usually you can kind of bring it down to 2.
Okay.
But
give me the 2.
That I had. Well, all I'd say is it's wide open this year.
Okay.
But if I were pushed,
I'm pushing you.
Okay. I would keep an eye on protein. Hasn't been asked since 2020. Lipids, we're looking for lipids for quite a while. That was 2018. But also be wary of the sneaky ones. Calcium 2019, linked with osteoporosis, and then you have vitamin A, not asked since 2012, vitamin B12 since 2009. So you actually need to cover all of those. And then the last part of question 1, section B, is what I call the dodgy 20. Well, I don't actually call it the dodgy 20. A student of mine many years ago said, Sandra, that's very dodgy looking. And I said, so it got the name, but it's worth 20 marks. It's 5% of the exam. And again, it's all about practice. And usually these reflect what's going on in the world outside. So for example, in 2023, how can people live healthily on a budget? Because the cost of inflation, the cost of food went up, I think you want to be watching things like food waste would be a big one. You know, think of topics that are very relevant at the moment. So that's your question, and you should spend about 40 minutes on that question. For the other part of section B, you've got 4 50 markers, and this is where you can kind of take a breath. You've got great choice here.
Okay.
Because even though I can't tell you, I don't know what the topics are, we do know that definite areas come up, which a lot of students would ask. They're not aware that every year question 2 is guaranteed to be on food. Now, when I say food, it could be a food group, meat, eggs, fish, cheese, or it could be a diet. Like, for example, you'd have to keep an eye, coronary heart disease hasn't been up since 2007. We know obesity hasn't been asked since 2013. I'm not giving tips here. And then you go on. Question 3, you have to keep a really close eye there because yeast, like Enda was saying, his course, chemistry, is coming to the end. Ours is coming to the end. 2 years' time, we're going to have a new syllabus. So they've exhausted everything except Yeast has never ever been asked.
Okay.
And also, I keep saying there about reflection of, because home economics is a living subject. We cannot live 1 hour of our day without home economics. And bacteria and food poisoning. You might recall that case of botulism in France during the World Cup. So,
yeah, a lot of people
and
sick,
there's
yeah.
a big thing. So you'd want to watch the two of those there for that question. Processed food, food additives. I did say I wasn't giving any tips there.
Yeah, I don't think you're being exactly truthful there.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. It's
So
fine.
they would be there for question 3. And
Yeah.
then question 4 is guaranteed to be on what's called the home management section. Budgeting hasn't been asked since 2015. Savings accounts. Again, reflection of what's going on in society.
Yeah.
Housing. I mean, every day we wake up, we hear about the problem with housing. So trends in housing developments not asked since 2012. Neither have they asked since that year about local authority schemes, you know, for people who are struggling maybe to get on the housing ladder. So things like learning about the HAP payment would be one, or the tenant purchase scheme. So question 4, also watch the fridge there, or consumer research from Consumer Studies.
Okay. The last section of the paper, section C, what is that about? Because there's a lot of marks here as well.
Well, we're back to pre-COVID paper, basically, except for one thing, and that's here. And section C is usually what we describe as the, I suppose, the prepared work, your chosen specialised topic. Half the country generally do elective 1 or elective 3. Elective 1 would be home design, and elective 3 social studies. In the middle we've textiles, very few do that, but I would personally be saying to students, focus on the addition we got after COVID, which is question 4 core. And why I would emphasise that is because it is exactly like the questions you get on section B. Food studies. So topics I gave there for the 50 markers in section B, they potentially can come up here in question 4, the core. Why would you take on a whole section of another area when you can just say, well, if I learn my topics for the shorts and for section B, I can use all of that information that I've learned and I'll answer question 4, the core. And it's the first thing I would do when I go into the exam, and that is, I know we were all dying to get into that paper. Who wouldn't want to be diving into home economics on a Wednesday afternoon, the first day of your leaving? But the first thing I would do is go straight to section C and get a pen and cross out the 3 you are not going to do, because it's human nature when you'd get to section C and, you know, you are panicked that day. There's no denying that. So at least when you do get to section C, you will only focus on your particular page that you've chosen.
Lastly, Sandra, you've advice for people saying that they should build a folder with 5 sections. Explain to me those 5 sections.
Well, first of all, you have learn in sections, and then you can learn topical areas. There's no predictions, but you certainly, I've done out a 6-week intensive revision plan, which students can access. And basically, obviously you need to cover everything for the H1, but there are certain topics that you need to absolutely make sure that they're top of your list. With regard to that, what did you say?
No, I just said the 5 sections, how should they be structured?
Oh yeah, so the nutrients would be one. I see I ramble too much.
No,
God love those students
so,
out there. So
yeah.
Nutrients would be one, food groups would be another. Then you would have, we call, say, the dietary section, and then you have the, what we call it, the home management section. Put 5 of them in that folder, which would be the household technology, the consumer studies, the textiles, and the finance section there. And then finally, you have your sociology for question 5, the core. Watch marriage and the family. Keep an eye on those.
I love these tips. Thank you so much for that. Sandra Cleary there from Grinds 360. And she mentioned there she's extra study and revision material online. Just look up RTE Learn Senior Cycle and you'll find that information.